Welcome into Unlimit Yourself. My name is Kemi Joseph. I am very honored to be your presenter, and I'll kick it off like this. I step on stage and I go full throttle, letting nothing but love flow up out of my nozzle. I'm a big dreamer and a role model, building a brighter future for generations that follow. And every day I wake, it's not to sunshine, but I strive to change the world by always being kind. People look at me crazy, think I'm out of my mind, but I smile back at them and insist I'm just fine. I strive to keep my head up, even in tough binds, and transform situations like Optimus Prime. No, seriously, I see every day as a beautiful gift, which is why I'm using mine to close this racial rift. We can't sit back to watch the world as it splits, so I'm going full force like an NFL blitz. I'm thankful for my rights and my freedom of expression. That's why I'm using mine to leave a positive impression. We got to end the hatred, bloodshed, and oppression. It's a long road ahead, but stopping's out of the question. Because science even proves it. We all come from the same place, which is planet Earth. So we got to stop the fight and unite the human race, which takes work. That's why compassion bursts from my heart like a geyser, and I'm going to give it all prior to my expire. Yes, my skin is brown and my passion's like fire, and they're permanent like stripes on a tiger. It might make me a target, but I'm invulnerable because love is eternal. That's what I keep in my skull. And yes, I'm going to love you whether you're a friend or foe, because spreading love brings hope. Brings hope. And hope is wonderful. Type the word hope in the chat if you can use some more hope. Please type the word hope in the chat if you can use some more hope right now. And what gives me hope is turning hope into an acronym for humans overcome problems every day. That's what allows me to rise and shine. Humans overcome problems every day. And I know this world is having more problems than less right now. So I appreciate the opportunity to come here and give you some hope. Also give you some tools, give you some ideas for what you can do for those times where you don't feel hopeful, so you can keep on going and overcoming those problems every day. So welcome in. Again, my name is Kemi Joseph. I love this picture as it represents a lot about who I am these days, and get a chance to work in education spaces with elementary kids all the way up to adults. And now I'm doing most of my work in businesses and organizations. This is kind of my roots. And there's my mom there. My mom, we celebrated her 67th birthday, and I'm super honored to have her in my life as the strongest woman that I know. And the reason that my dad is not in this picture is because when I was 13 years old, my dad, on my 13th birthday, he was hit by a drunk driver. So imagine waking up for the time where I feel like I was going to be an adult, and I'm getting ready to go into the world and feel like I can take it on. And boom, that morning, being woken up with the news that my dad was hit by a drunk driver and then passed away 2 weeks later. So very much understand and can relate to pain and trauma and frustration and anger. And these pictures right here kind of represent a time where I just feel like I was living in black and white. And we're seeing a lot of things in our country and our world right now that feels like we're going backwards. We're going back to black and white instead of living in full color. And for me, I see a lot of people walking around like this. They feel that anger, they feel that frustration. But I know that the trauma we've all experienced really has a lot of us feeling like this. And in this conversation, with so much pain, so much frustration, so much anger, there's also so much more fear in the world. And which is why I started our organization, The Fear's Advantage, to take these things that are scary, these things that are frustrating, instead of creating more gaps and keeping us further from each other. We want to use our fears to fuel extraordinary actions, relationships, and systems in our lives. Like, I've been told so much that I'm supposed to overcome my fear. I've been told that I'm supposed to overcome my anger or squash it down. And yeah, you can overcome problems. You can overcome obstacles that are outside of us. Absolutely. But our emotions, our fears are inside of us for a reason. And when I stop trying to push them away and actually embrace them, I learned that I can use them to my advantage. And I want to show you how to use them to your advantage. If you can pick up this at your age, whether you are a youth listening to this or an adult right now, to be able to take this on and say, I can do something different. It's okay to feel angry and frustrated. There's a lot going on that justifies that. But what I had to learn is that it's not okay to then turn that anger and frustration out on other people. So what can I do to break cycles of negativity? What can I do to unlimit myself and say, hey, yeah, the world is doing what the world's going to do, and I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that I'm adding more positivity, adding more kindness, adding more hope. So let's talk about how to use our fears to our advantage. Right now in this world, we've all had some limitation that has been impacting us. And most people will say they have limited time, resources, or love, right? I don't have enough time to do this. I don't have enough time to do that. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough XYZ, whatever you want to do to fill in the resources. I don't have enough love. I'm not being accepted. I don't love myself. And it's very interesting that we focus so much our attention on what we don't have. And people will even cross these off the list when we start talking about making positive change. I don't have enough time for that. People say they don't have enough time, but we spend most of our time focused on the past or the future versus being here in the present. People say they don't have enough resources, but forget that the number one resource is our resourcefulness, our ability to think beyond issues and to really look for new solutions, create new solutions. People have said they don't have enough love. They don't have enough connection to other human beings. We have to be socially distanced. We can rephrase that to say we can be physically distanced. We can have social solidarity right now. So if people are crossing these things off their list, I'm encouraging folks instead to start reading between the lines and saying that limitations are invitations. Anytime we feel limited in our life, it is an opportunity, it is an invitation for us to think or act differently. And I know that might be hard to process, but I'll tell you, I've faced a lot of limitations. And I've just realized for myself, having to go through struggle after struggle after struggle, and the difficulties that I've personally faced, I've just realized that I'm multi-talented because I was multi-limited. I was multi-limited. I grew up in a single parent household of 9 siblings. So you imagine resources were limited. I was traumatized from an early age, dealt with depression, dealt with all this anxiety, had suicidal thoughts since I was 8 years old. So you imagine I felt limited on love. I was constantly thinking about the future and what can I create so I can avoid being in the present. I was constantly limited in what I even thought was possible. And I can share even more limitations. Even had health limitations that had me at one point temporarily handicapped. So I'm grateful I can even stand right now. For me, having all these limitations throughout my life have taught me that I needed to think outside the box. I needed to do things differently. So when I say that I was multi-limited, I'm acknowledging that you might feel that way as well. And a part of this process is what can you do to become unlimited and develop the talents, the skills, the resources, the support system that allows you to thrive regardless of what's happening in your life and in the world. So if you're with that, if you're into that kind of conversation, type the word thrive in the chat, please. Because for us at Fears Advantage, our goal is to create a world where more people can thrive. And it starts, I believe, from the inside out. So type the word thrive in the chat. Let's go, right? Thank y'all. I appreciate you rolling with us. And what's interesting here is although people can have those external resources limited, the ones that we have the greatest ability, the greatest opportunity to tap into at any given time are our thoughts, our stories, and our influence. So the thoughts we're thinking every single day, the stories that we tell about ourselves and others, and the influence that we have on our world, on our lives, on the lives of other people. So we're connecting these together and saying our fuel is our thoughts. Our thoughts can fuel us to live limited, or it can fuel violence, it can fuel pain, it can fuel the frustration, or it can start to fuel an extraordinary change. For us to be extraordinary, I'll tell you that how extraordinary we feel is going to be greater than or equal to the stories that we tell about ourselves. And then the actions that we take in the world will increase or decrease our positive influence? I want to have a positive impact. I want to have a positive influence. So I have to be thinking about the actions that I am adding to the world. So we're going to focus on these three for today. And what's interesting when we talk about fuel, again, look at how fiery this is. It reminds me, I feel this way so much more than I have in the past. Before I was angry, and now it's a different level of not just angry, it's frustrated, it's scared, it's pain, it's trauma that we're experiencing. And I get that. And my goal in this section here is to talk about how to unlimit your thoughts so you can unlimit your life. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about this. And what I want you to do, I appreciate y'all playing along in the chat here. I'm going to ask you, as we go through a couple of these phrases, to just fill in the blanks. For example, what thoughts come to mind when you see this phrase, the world is? How would you fill this in? The world is. For me, when I was growing up, when I was your age, the world felt, the world to me at that time is a place of pain and suffering. The world is a place where some people succeed and others don't, where some people thrive and others are oppressed. Some people say the world is diverse, the world is a scary place, the world is troubled. I agree with those things. And when we're talking about unlimiting ourselves, I think about what Albert Einstein said. He says that the most important decision we have to make is whether we believe that the universe, or in this case, our world, is a friendly or hostile place. I can definitely agree that the world is a difficult place, and I'm choosing every day to look for the things in my neighborhood, things in my community, the people around me, to look for how is the world an amazing place? How can I see more of that? Because what we focus on will expand. And I can tell you before, when I was in such tunnel vision and all I kept focusing on was what I don't have, what I don't have, what I don't have, what I don't have, the world got smaller. So I know what that's like. I don't want that. I don't want that for you either. Most of us spend about 90% of our time thinking about the negative things. What if we start to expand that percentage of what we start to see as positive? If you're at only 10% of positive, even 11% is opening your mind. So I'm talking about unlimiting yourself. We can take these progressive steps. What about this phrase? COVID has what? What has COVID specifically done to you or you've seen in the world? For me, last year, I guess 2019, I was crushing it, man. I was traveling all over. I was living my dream of being a speaker, traveled 150 days all over this country, a little bit international. It was just amazing. And then March 15th was my last flight. Boom, I was grounded. So I feel like COVID crushed my dream. And think about one of my mentors that said, the dream is delayed, not denied. And even that was expansive for me to think, okay, I said that COVID crushed my dream, but I was the one crushing my dream in response to COVID. So when I heard that the dream is delayed, not denied, it opened up a whole other group of possibilities to say, okay, COVID has pivoted my dream. I'm deciding how I want to bring that forward. Yes, COVID has caused me loss, pain, frustration. COVID has also given me a chance. The limitation of not being able to travel has pushed me to focus on healing and improving my health more than I ever did before, to be here to support my family. I just got back to Miami and I was traveling so much that I felt like I didn't live here anymore. But now I can be here to support my family through the good times and the hard times, and several of them had COVID. So for me, being able to support them there was like so powerful. So I'm pulling all of it. I'll tell you, if you want to expand your life, think about and. COVID has done the negative things and it has given us positives. Which one you choose to focus on is going to make the huge difference for you. And please understand, I want to be as sensitive as possible that when you're in the heat of the moment and the things are difficult, please know I'm not telling you to try to switch to gratitude. I used to hate that when people would tell me that, when it's like stubbing your toe and someone's like, oh, at least you have 9 other toes. You'd be like, get out of here. I don't want to talk about positivity sometimes. It's okay to feel sad, to feel like things that a loss is a loss, to actually grieve your process. And know that when you're ready to see the positives, when you're ready to embrace that, they're also there. Let's try a couple more. Life is. How would you finish this one here? Life is. It's interesting. People will say life is hard. Life is a gift. I love it. I'm glad to see y'all say life is a gift. Life is amazing. Life is powerful. What's interesting is I'm thinking about Tony Robbins. He says that we have to make a decision to say, is life on our side? Do we believe that life is working for us or against us? I used to think that life was working against me. I mean, it's interesting that I talked to someone yesterday and they were like, oh man, I'm really excited to like this next thing that's coming up. They didn't even want to tell me. They're like, I don't want to jinx it. It's like, can we jinx something? Can we literally think that if I say something too prematurely, the life's going to take it away? That to me communicates that we feel like life is working against us. I've had so many tragedies. I feel like I am a positive pessimist as best as I can say that. But I'm pessimistic because I've had enough pain and suffering and problems. But I've also had enough like beautiful meant to be moments. When I say meant to be moments, is moments that I've had where even in my neighborhood, for example, yesterday I saw a homeless gentleman and I just stopped for a moment and talked with him, and he was asking me how to navigate the neighborhood and where he was going to fix his bike. And I was able to be there and help him. He just like looked at me and say, thank you. That was such a small thing. We didn't catch each other's name, but it's like that moment for me was a meant to be moment where everybody else, literally I saw people walking by him, like not even trying to help. This dude was just laying on the sidewalk. It's like, what the heck is that? So I was there though. So I feel like I had a moment with this person that I was able to help them in their lives. And I start to see that those moments, if that moment was meant to be, then that means even all the other difficult moments that led to that were meant to be. And I keep thinking about this quote from Steve Jobs that says, sometimes we can't connect the dots until we look backwards. And when we look backwards, we can connect the dots in our lives and see how things have been working for us. And I've had enough of those kind of moments to know that the dots are there. So when I think about these dots, what dots are you connecting? What dots are you connecting? Let's talk about the dots for today. What dots are showing up in your life? What are the moments right now? What are the incredible pieces of the puzzle that might show up like a gift wrapped in sandpaper? It feels super coarse. It feels frustrating. It's like, man, why the heck would you show up like this as a gift? But the sad thing is that sometimes we don't even acknowledge the gifts. I mean, there are legitimately terrible things happening in this same moment right now. I'm grateful to be with you, to be having this conversation, to truly be saying and making a declaration of who I choose to be today and what I choose to focus on. And so as y'all are hearing all these thoughts, it's okay if you're hearing limiting thoughts as your first response. I'm just asking you to pay attention to these things so that way you can start to say, okay, that doesn't feel good to hear that thought, to feel like today sucks. Today is garbage. Today is hard. If you're hearing those thoughts, just know that that might be your experience, and that experience can change. And it doesn't have to be like we're singing Kumbaya and everything is all good. And we're like, okay, it can be small things. Like today is getting better. Today is a new day. It doesn't have to be from 0 to 100, people. Please understand that. I want you to be taking those steps that allow you to unlimit yourself piece by piece. And so that's what we'll talk about for now with the fuel portion, that our thoughts are fueling. I love it. It says, today is not bad yet, right? Right? That counts. I'll take it. That's what's fueling our day. That's what's fueling our lives when we think about the thoughts that are moving us, either keeping us limited or starting to expand what's even possible. Now, we're talking about this piece about being extraordinary. Let's look at the stories that we tell. Again, that our feeling of being extraordinary, of being powerful in our identity, will be limited by the stories that we tell, or will be increased by the story we tell. And I'm not telling you to tell any kind of lies here about yourself. But sometimes what's interesting when we start to think about new affirmations and we start to think about new ways we want to speak into our lives, it's kind of like speaking into a future version of ourselves. So that way we can start to see what else is possible and how we want to tell people who we're becoming. And so from this piece about being extraordinary, I want you to tell your story with power and possibility. Tell your story with power and possibility. And this is one of the things I wish I knew as a teenager. I didn't know this until maybe I was 18. But before, when people would ask me even about the situation with my dad, again, all I could think about was the trauma. It took me about 5 years to even process that experience. So just know that if you're experiencing trauma, if you're experiencing the pain, just know it can get better. And there's different tiers of processing it. One thing that I have to do is reach out for professional help. So please, if you're in the area, I know you have your staff here on this call. You have the folks who care about you. I knew that I was telling my story from a place of dang, one person I love so much is gone. So then I started to shrink my story and stop really being someone that other people could reach because I was afraid of losing people. And as I started to share even what I was going through, I could start to see that one, I wasn't the only one experiencing that, and my siblings were experiencing this too. And as we started to tell our story, like we just came together to honor the 20-year anniversary of my dad passing. And to look at where our family is now, 20 years later, I can tell that we've been speaking a story of power and possibility. Yeah, there was pain. We turned that pain into power. Yeah, there was limitation. We turned that limitation into possibility. It might have took me 20 years. Maybe it'll take you less. Maybe it'll take you more. But to keep speaking your story from a place of power and possibility, it's important that we understand that we have so many people involved in our story. So interesting as you think about this phrase that people are, how would you finish this, right? Some people are terrible. Some people are trying to hurt us. Some people are difficult. Also, some people are loving. Some people are here to support us. Some people are inherently good, right? People are saying this, and kind. Some people, there's people on either side of this. So one thing I learned to do was to even add the word some people. That way I stopped making stereotypes. That way I stopped kind of putting everybody into this box. Yeah, some people are frustrating and annoying. I'm saying some people are imperfect. We're all imperfect. Some people are complex. I love you. Even these ideas are kind of fine tuning and allowing us to see people as full on people, as opposed to just the static images we have in our mind. What about my family is? My family is, I say right now, my family is epic. I'm so proud of our family. Back in the day, I would say, my family's disconnected. In my family, I would say things I would think sometimes that my family didn't love me because I was in so much trouble as a teenager, as a youth, that it was really hard. I was causing more pain and frustration for my family, so we had so much tension. And I realized, again, back to the idea of influence, which we'll talk about in a moment, that as I started to add more positive actions, those relationships started to be more supportive. And now I say my family is lovely. My family loves me. I love my family. That was a shift for me. And that might be a shift for you, especially if you're some of y'all just like with your family every single day now that we're in quarantine. Those things can be frustrating. But being able to even reconnect with our family members and let them know what we're going through, or know that they're also going through something. My family depends on me is something that I know now as well. What about our school is? I know today is a celebration of your school. Our school is, how would you finish this in our chat? And I know there might be adults watching who are not in school. So you can say our organization or my job is, how would you finish that is? How would you finish that out? It says amazing, amazing. Home, man, imagine your school can feel homely, not just that it is in your home, but that it feels like home. And I know a lot of us are missing that right now. How would you finish this phrase? I am. Now this one's a big one. Generally what comes after this one says a lot about who we are, what we believe is possible. In a world where we have so many more identities, the diversity continues to expand. How we identify ourselves makes a huge difference in how we live in the world, and also can provoke discrimination. And I get that. It's very important that we claim who we are and we embrace it, because the world's going to tell you lots of things. The world will tell you all day who they think you are, who they want you to be, what kind of boxes, what kind of limitations you're supposed to fit in. And we might be telling that to other people as well. So I'm going to ask you to really look at what comes after I am, to make sure that what that is really speaks truth, speaks power and possibility into your story. For example, I am getting better. I am awesome. I'm fantastic, right? I am Kemi Joseph, right? I know what that means to me. What does it mean for you when you say I am? I am doing good. I'm doing well. Some people say, how are you doing? You may puff that up. I am. Whatever you say after, hopefully it's something that's going to cascade into a better day for you, knowing that, again, the world can tell you lots of other pieces. Now, I want us to close out talking about actions and influence, because this is how we take the thoughts and our stories and then we start to put them in to influence a way that we can impact other people. And when we're looking at actions, oftentimes, especially in this world where there's so many things happening at the same time, our actions are like leaping a chasm. And I want to be always able to create new solutions that empower people. So it's interesting for me that I'm going to challenge you to use your influence to make a positive impact. Your actions are going to increase or decrease your ability to make this positive impact. Now, it's important that we use the word influence because I want you to focus on where you have influence. We all have influence, even if it might be small. We have influence on the people directly around us. Oftentimes, we're working with leaders who are running organizations, that within the organizations are also all these folks who have different levels of influence. Focus on wherever you have influence. Right now, I have the influence of being in front of you on this camera and being able to share that. I told you I influence my family, I influence our team. I influence people in my neighborhood. I choose where to focus my attention on where I have influence so I can take actions that are going to help people. And when we're talking about taking actions, I will tell you that every action, every decision we make is either going to increase harm or increase healing. Increase hurt or increase healing. Oftentimes when I was hurt, guess what I was doing? Increasing more harm and more hurt. So it's interesting to think about this phrase here, because none of us are above being an oppressor or doing things that hurt other people. So I acknowledge for myself that I hurt people by ignoring them, sometimes ignoring their messages or not getting back to them sooner. I can tell that my friends are hurt in that way. I know sometimes I hurt people by not being present because I'm distracted, because I'm doing other things, or I might come in a meeting and I'm frustrated because things have happened in the world and I might bring that on to other people. I hurt people in the neighborhood if I'm walking around and it feels like I'm judging them, even though they don't know that I might be judging them because they didn't say hi to me. Now I'm like, but I feel like I'm just bringing that toxicity. And I can tell you about other ways that I've hurt people in the past. It's not here to clear out the diary. I'm just telling you that I acknowledge, even as somebody who people claim like see as such a positive person, I understand that I can still hurt people. So my goal is to tip the scale. Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, I work on doing better because I really want to make sure I can focus on this phrase. I help people by making sure I can speak truth and I can make sure I can see and acknowledge them for who they are, for doing these kind of presentations, for making sure that I'm saying my thank yous, for making sure I acknowledge the ways that I can be better and I take feedback to keep on going, that I really listen, right? That I show up, that I smile, that, this weekend I'm going to a funeral and I'm like, I don't want to be at a funeral. I don't think anybody wants to be at a funeral, but I know that's one way that I can support. So I show up during the hard times as well. When you think about what you're doing in your school, in your organization, how are you showing up to help people? It's important that we're pinpointing those actions. And what's interesting too is if we go to this conversation, I limit myself sometimes, especially when I'm dealing with the issue around my health. I mean, most people don't know, I have pain in my throat. So every word that I get to speak feels so amazing to be able to share that. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to speak. Pain in my back. So I limit myself sometimes from thinking that this is never going to be over. I limit myself sometimes by saying like, I'm not doing enough. I limit myself sometimes by not taking care of myself because I'm still in pursuit of other endeavors. We can keep going down that list for sure. If someone says, I limit myself by saying I can't, I'll even tell you right now, I don't even say I can anymore. Just say either I won't, right? I won't is more empowering than I can't. I can't is like some external forces telling me that I can't do it. I won't says, hey, I won't do it, or I don't want to do it. That's even more empowering than saying that I can't do it. So even as we're talking about these little steps, right, being able to shift some of those pieces, how about I unlimit myself by? I unlimit myself by. I know I unlimit myself by getting back up the next day, getting back up every day, taking it literally step by step. I limit myself by focusing on where I have influence and being like, how do I magnify that influence? How do I magnify that positive impact, including a positive impact on myself? Right? I used to limit myself by like not meditating or not doing something in the morning to ground myself. I would just get up and go. I'll tell you now, I've only been like maybe a couple weeks in, but I'm like meditating more. It's like, what? This is amazing. Why didn't I start this sooner? And we might have those kind of moments when we think, oh man, I'm so dumb for this, or why didn't I think about this sooner? It's like, why would we beat ourselves up for finding new information? Now I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done this sooner, but I'm glad I'm doing it now. That way I still have some more positive experience for myself. That way I don't want to hurt myself or calling myself dumb for not figuring it out sooner. It's like, yeah, this is part of my process. That's better than calling myself dumb. I don't use those words anymore. The trigger word for me was like lazy or weak. It's like, no, I don't use those things anymore. Instead, I'm figuring out what can I do to make sure that I'm seeing myself get better every single day. As we close out here, I want to bring us back to this slide, right, where we talk about how our thoughts are our fuel and our levels of feeling extraordinary are going to be impacted by the stories we tell about ourselves and tell about others. And then the actions we have are going to increase or decrease our positive influence. And I know today we're talking about increasing support in your school. So I will tell you, if you're doing those first three, you're certainly going to create more relationships, more empowering and positive relationships that allow you to support each other and support people in experiencing their passion. And so as we close out today, I will tell you once again that limitations are invitations. And I know it's hard to hear that sometimes, but I promise you that if you start looking for the invitations to think and do things differently in those moments where you're feeling blocked, you will find more possibilities and more opportunities. Because for me, the only difference between that kid there and the person I am today are those lessons I just shared with you. And you can go back and rewatch this, and you can connect with me on Instagram. We can continue this conversation. I just want you to know that you have the ability to be unlimited, and it starts with you right here. The world might try to tell you all that's going to tell you, I'm going to tell you, it starts with you right here. And I decide to unlimit myself today. I'd love for you to type into the chat, I decide to unlimit myself today. And I'll close out with this last piece. We'll say, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine through the darkest night, because I'm hoping to save some lives. COVID is on the rise, but we will survive. And now we must decide to end the divide. We got to choose to reunite, to love instead of fight, to shift the paradigm and evolve our collective minds, to live for the real change, to be the real change, because we are the real change that we've been waiting for. Every day, a star is born. When we break the norm, we break the mold, we break the hold, and we embrace our wholeness to navigate through the darkness, because the darkest of places are the spaces in between us. So awaken to your greatness and live life as the bravest version of the person who's emerging. Then keep working for a better life, a better world, and a better way. Yeah, we might be afraid, but we can make real change today. Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all.